I always said, if we ever did something together, oh man, it would be awesome.
It'd be out of control.
And John would be billing us out of jail.
Yeah.
Next thing I did was work the auto show circuit as a narrator. The girls that stand on the hamster wheel of the car. And they're like, this is the Jeep Grand Cherokee. I did that.
My sister said, he left his Richard Cunningham and he came back as John Lennon.
I offered the producers of PBR.
She had come from sit position, bit him in the balls, went back to sit position, and if I blinked and I hardly saw it and looked at her, and she was just sitting there like
a ninja.
And I turned around and I said, "You just missed 10 grand." He goes, "Why?" And I said, "Because that was me being a dick."
8G hit, and it hit so freaking hard. I'm like, maybe I should have landed in the grass.
I can hear you laugh from here, not through the screen, but from.
And I left there feeling like a bag of dicks.
No, did she just say a bag of dicks?
Yes, she did.
Like, let's say I want to get one of those Speed Marine hats. Where do I go to get it?
Oh, dude, plug it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're not supposed to stop. You're supposed to act like it's normal. We integrate.
No, I always forget that part.
When they started asking, who here can drive a 60? This is 30 or 40 extras. None of them could. We had to test a couple of my mechanics as terrorists and put them in the cars to.
Tell the story again about the panties and the dog. And
I'll let you tell it.
If you're not hustling, you're sleeping.
How'd you pull that off, Chad?
Well,
You got some kind of magic wand or just a big wand?
Hey-o.
Man, we could talk for weeks about this stuff.
This
This
is
is literally the most professional podcast I've ever done.
Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we have exhaust guru David Borla. That's right, we got David tonight. So you guys are going to have a great time listening to us talk about expended gas and how they muffle expended gas. I don't mean farts, guys. I mean the real deal. Hey, this is like a bad kung fu movie. My mouth isn't moving right. I don't understand why. So we're going to go to a commercial, and then me and John will try and figure it out, and then we'll bring on David. Go ahead, Brad. It was quick. I know.
Ever wonder what happened to your favorite Hollywood stars? Some are screen legends.
That's a Cadillac.
Some made history.
What do you say? Is it the new Bluesmobile or what?
One thing's for sure, they all have more to tell. Road trip with me, Lou Santiago, as I hunt down these iconic cars.
The car's actually stolen. My kids said, Dad, you're not going to believe what's over here.
And take you behind the scenes to get the story behind the story.
I'm going to have the car do the same thing. Oh, bang, wow.
From the designers who built them, the stars that drove them, and the lucky motherfuckers who stumbled across them. Where was his car when you found it? Pull in there. Pull in there. Dude, tell me you have your hands on it. You're not going to believe some of this stuff.
Dude, it's like I'm in a bad kung fu movie.
It looks good on mine.
Okay, cool. Because like I'm sitting there watching myself. Like I thought that I was gonna have to like start going.
You do that anyhow. So what
I got confused. I don't understand it. So before we get started, Bruce, I'm sure is doing well because I haven't heard from him. I got to call him. He just, said hello. But Chassis John had back surgery.
I saw.
His vertebrae was in pieces, and they went in there and shot like some cement in there, and then they go, "Oh yeah, by the way, you got a tumor." So they pulled the tumor out. I think 2-3 days ago, and now they went in there today and finished cleaning up his back. Yeah. So hopefully he's good to go. So He might be watching us. He might be watching. He might be watching us on the in his hospital room. On on his phone or something. Who knows? But yeah. So yeah, it's just crazy. It's just crazy. But anyway.
Yeah.
So I it really grinds my gears because I saw this. I was watching the news before the show, and they're trying to cancel Jack Del Rio. He's now the coach of the Washington Redskins, or is it Commanders, whatever the hell it is, the Washington football team. I'm going to say Redskins because that's what I grew up saying. Yeah. So someone's going to be mad about that. But he just asked a legitimate question.
What was it? I missed it. What did he say?
Basically, they were talking about the January 6th thing tonight on TV, because they're going to have they said that they're going to have groundbreaking, footage, and they're going to prove everything, whatever. But he said he didn't understand why it is that everybody's talking about January 6th, but nobody's talking about all the riots before that.
True.
It is true.
Yeah.
And he was like, I don't understand. Can someone tell me why this is happening? And they just everything just lit up,
because it's political. It's all politics. It's all an agenda. It's to keep the January 6th crap alive. People forget real fast about the people that were protesting, shooting cars driving by. They were burning down buildings. They were beating people up out front of their storefronts that tried to keep them from rioting. Remember all that stuff?
Oh yeah.
Philadelphia, they were trying to break into a gun shop. Then the gun owner actually killed 2 or 3 of them.
Really? I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, and he got some flack because he stopped them. Had they gotten into the gun shop,
it would have been over.
Exactly. And luckily he was there. He was there, and he shot downstairs. He was upstairs, from what I understand. But he was the guy that actually trained the police and sold the guns to the police, off-duty cops. They're personal weapons.
Yeah.
So yeah, he took them out. And I'm thinking it's a bad day for those guys. But they forget how fast all that turned around. The gun sales were up because people were freaking out when they saw the news.
Dude, they said last month there was another record month for gun sales.
Well, that's because they're threatening to take them away. Same with Canada. Canada's trying to stop everything, and people ran in and bought as many as they could, as fast as they could.
Yeah.
I think the whole world's going a little crazy.
Oh,
I think people are going out of their way to be crazy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Did you see that Matt, I think it's Matt Welsh, he did a thing on
Matt
What's
Walsh,
a Woman?
Yeah.
What's a Woman?
Yeah. I saw the preview for it. They're running it. There's a preview on it. Yeah, a commercial on YouTube. And it's amazing to me that these people get so upset. Supposedly he's had death threats about this.
But that's the thing too. Lou, I think it goes back to what I was saying about a week and a half ago with that kid that was outside the Italian restaurant down in Miami that was going and ripping up all the plastic fruit and the orange crate that was sitting out front for display and throwing it on the ground, and the mom standing there just waiting for her to be done playing so they could go back to eat.
Yeah.
And again, people don't have any appreciation for other people's materials, their space. There's no respect there. Yeah. It's be your kid's friend. Don't discipline your kid. And it's sort of crazy.
Well, did I tell you about the time I was in the Petro up in Carlisle? Did I ever tell you that? So I got my nephew and I got Nicholas, my youngest, and they were like 10 years old at the time. It was a while ago. And we're sitting there eating at the truck stop because they got good food there. And there was an older couple, probably like mid 70s, maybe even early 80s. And they were sitting at the table next to us. And the lady says to me, she goes, "Sir, you have 2 very well-behaved young men." And I said, "That's right, because they know I'll smack the shit out of them."
Right? Can't do that anymore. Can't do that anymore.
Yeah. And that's half the problem. But we're not.
When we were kids and you acted up, your parents would grab you, take you outside. People know it was going to happen to you. And when you came in, you came back, you were a new person. Yeah. You're not doing that again. You don't carry on. Nowadays, it's just go ahead, get it out of your system.
Yeah. Fuck.
Now, you're a parent. I'm not, but I'm talking from a distance here, but still. I think that's part of the issue is not, the respect.
Well, it's there's just there's a lack of just common decency. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we're both the same. We give respect until we have a reason not to give it.
Yeah, we talked about.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the difference. These, you get people who think that, oh, I can do what I want, but you still have to respect me. No, I don't have to do that. If you don't want to respect me, I'm not going to respect you. It's just that simple. I actually I posted a picture on Instagram. Yeah. And somebody replied, that I have no disrespect, that I have all kinds of disrespect for the president. And I said, and I was going to reply, but I didn't, because my whole thing is I respect the office of the president. I don't have to respect the president. Yeah. I mean, I don't have to. And it's not just the one we have now. It's any of them. I don't have to respect them. I don't have to, if they ask me a question, if it ever happened, I'd give them an answer. But there's something else that we need to talk about, John, that I think is way more important. Way more important. I heard CNN is cleaning house and they're looking for anchors.
Yeah, that ain't never gonna happen.
Yeah. CNN, huh? Yeah. Huh? Come on.
Lucky Fu and Johnny Bananas.
Come on.
We'll come on at 1 o'clock. We'll come on to happy hour.
Could you see us at CNN? Oh my God. They're looking for people, man.
Abbott Costello. People are like,
yeah.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, we need to do it. We need to do it. We just need to do it.
I keep hearing that too, but I don't. I'll wait till I see it happen. I don't believe any of it. I just don't. But we're going too far into the who, what, the politics, the left side, right side shit. We got David on.
Let's get David on here.
I want to talk about electric cars. I want to talk to him about it.
He's going to put mufflers on electric cars. Is that what he's going to do? I got to ask him. Brad, take us to commercial. I got to ask the important question. Mufflers on electric cars. Go ahead.
It sounded too good to be true. A dealership that's been in business over 65 years. Terrific deals and thousands of repeat customers. You know what I love about this dealership?
What's that?
It's a big building where they sell cars, but that's not important right now. I love their 5-star customer reviews. See why more people are uncovering great deals at KennedyAuto.com. John Kennedy Ford. Enjoy your ride.
David looks thrilled.
I am.
He's like, what the hell did I get myself into? Nobody told me.
David, I got to ask this tough question because I know you can answer it.
Oh, yeah. Okay, let's start with a tough one right away.
Let's start. So, what's the deal with putting mufflers on electric cars?
I mean, if you'll buy them, I'll sell them.
I can hear it now. You know how they have that? I can hear it now. We knocked down 15 decibels off that bad boy.
So, I got a question for you guys. Have you driven an electric car?
No, I actually got to drive a Tesla because the school that I part-time teach at, Central Piedmont Community College, they have the East Coast Training Center at the school.
Okay.
And it's right next to the shop that I work in. So, yeah, I actually got to drive one. And I'm going to tell you, man, it launched nice. They launched nice. I mean, it's cool. The only thing for me is, they only get 400 miles to the charge.
Yeah.
And the infrastructure isn't there yet. I think we're doing it backwards. I think we need to build the infrastructure to charge these things and then push selling them. Because I think it was a Holiday Inn Express, and they only had 3 charging stations, and 2 of them pulled in and all the charging stations were taken. So these people are like, they're stuck. I mean, I hate to say that, but they're stuck. So
you guys, I'm in Southern California. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the San Fernando Valley down here, or whatever they call the valley. So it's vast, it's flat, and it's mostly apartment buildings, townhomes, stuff like that, right? Yeah. Every single street parking spot is taken, and every little sort of apartment building, they're 3-4 stories tall, like Karate Kid apartment buildings. They have 1 or 2 spots in the back you can park in. And my point is, until they have an answer for those people, right? The expectation that those guys are going to go charge their cars at Target while they shop.
Right.
You know, while all the doctors and lawyers have Tesla superchargers in their garage.
Right.
You know, not only is that not going to work, but I have a problem with it. Like, it bothers me personally that there's this sort of expectation that somebody who lives in an apartment, you know, isn't going to be able to charge their car at night, you know, or whatever. Are they going to run? You know,
how are they going to? How do you hook the service up if you were to do that? What are you going to do? Run the cable out your window down to your car? And 3, how are you going to keep somebody from unplugging your car and plugging their car in?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in New York in the '80s. Like, no, that's not happening.
Gas count. Right.
I mean,
they'll cut the cable and strip out the copper.
I mean, or they'll just unplug it for no reason.
Exactly.
Yeah. You know. So I mean, and here's the thing. So then they'll say something like they're going to put charging stations on the street like they used to have meters. You know, like in New York they have meters on the street. And that sounds like something that could happen. But to your point, they got to start doing that. That's the infrastructure you're talking about. You know.
Right.
I mean, all the legislation, all the sound clips and the narrative and all that stuff, until they get out there and they start cutting up concrete and laying wire and really doing it. And they're not doing those things. I don't care about, 25 Tesla charging stations at the movie theater.
Yeah.
That's not going to do it. That's really not going to do it, you know? And I got to tell you, as a car guy, and I feel comfortable saying this on this show, the electric car sucks. It sucks. They suck driving. They suck. I'm sorry.
What I really don't like about them is the whole point of having a hot rod is that it's visceral. You know what I mean? You hear when you nail it, you get the whoa, you get to shift it, you get to do all these things. And to me, that is what driving is about.
So I appreciate you bringing that up. That's a perfect segue. We're trying to bring that to electric cars. They don't have to suck, is really where I was going with this. They suck now.
Cool.
They don't have to suck. But what's got to happen is they got to start sort of like opening things up to the aftermarket, to people that make cars fun. This whole thing of like, we're going to code these things so nobody can get into them and you can't modify them and you can't do anything in your warranty and all this other stuff. They'll never be fun and eventually somebody's going to catch on to that, like the way Japanese car companies in the early 90s, started changing their suspension so that they could be modified, which is what really led to that whole sport compact craze.
Oh yeah.
Was they were building cars that were modifiable. So of course I grew up in the aftermarket, and I'm heavily biased, but it's $1 billion plus industry. There are legions of people out there that like to tinker and play with their cars and personalize them, and so we went from sort of feeling like we had no interest in these cars to the realization that all of us have come to, which is that there's a place for them and they're going to be around. They are, and so
they are. Yeah.
What does Borla do? We make cars sound cool. That's what we do. So we tried to just boil it down to that, right? And when hydrogen cars come and algae powered cars come and George Jetson, whatever, we're like, we want to be able to, we want to make anything sound cool, any car sound cool. But you touched on something really important, which is that visceral connection, right? We have a performance background. So the connection between the car, especially the engine or the engine dynamics and sound, anybody that drives, of course, hardcore race car drivers, but even sport drivers going through a canyon, that experience of, downshifting and coming off the clutch and that rush of sound that comes, that lets you know sort of how fast the engine's spinning and what the load on the engine is and when it's time to shift. And that's not just entertainment. It connects you to the vehicle. And the next generation of car guys, what's their entry point into all this? You'd hear the older generation say, young people don't like cars. But then you look at something like the Fast and the Furious franchise. That's Universal's #1 movie franchise in the last 20 years. It's Fast and Furious. Look at driving video games, right? So like aside from the shoot 'em up video games, the driving video games are the most popular, and it's kids playing all this stuff. They love cars. It's just going to be a different experience for them because, frankly, they can't afford to buy a 65 Shelby Cobra, and they can't, you know. So, but and as they sort of mature, electric cars are going to be on the table. So we started thinking, like, kind of how can we put all this together? Yeah. And so years ago in 2014 and stop me if you want to stop me at any point.
Oh, keep going.
In 2014, we at the SEMA show, we wanted to have a display where we could mimic the experience of switching your exhaust on the same car. I get to drive all these cars. We'll build 25 different exhaust systems for the same car. I test drive every one of them. Everyone's a different experience. It's like a different car with the same car, different sounds, you know? So, yeah. And we started offering different sound levels, and they're very different from one another. So at a trade show, it was like, how can we show somebody what it's like to go from what we call a touring system, which is our sort of more mild system, to the attack system, which is really aggressive. Right. So we wanted to build and this was just when driving simulators were sort of starting to become more popular. So we wanted to put a simulator in our booth where you could sit in it, drive on the same track with the same Mustang, but change your exhaust systems and get a sense of sort of how different the driving experience is when you change your exhaust system. And so we went out and we recorded a 2014 Mustang, and we worked with a company that specializes in noise, vibration, and harshness for OEs, NVH, as they call it, NVH technology, which, by the way, covers all sounds, vibrations, and noises on a car way beyond exhaust. Wow. These are like big time global companies that work with OEs. Every panel on the car, every part in the engine, everything in the interior. This is how they make sure it's either silent or, you know, vibrations don't happen in second and third order vibrations. And it's an amazing thing, right? So what we wanted to do was use that technology to recreate the driving experience. And without getting too deep into it, we were able to do that in 2014 at a simulator where you could drive and change your exhaust systems, go from stock, toggle through our different systems on the same track, and feel it, you know, sort of get a little sense of that. So I started thinking to myself, well, what, you know, and the key to it was the recordings were not just sound files. We work with this company, this NVH company, that not only records the sound files, but in real time is also recording the engine dynamics, like RPM, throttle position, wheel speed, load on the engine, and they divide, every second gets divided into 500 units. So that's how fast it is. It's tracking what's happening with sounds 500ths of a second, you know? And so it's real. Like you lift, right? And you get that sound of lifting like immediately, you know, or you go hard into a corner, or you let the RPMs go up, or you go up a hill, right? You got a little bit more resistance going up a hill. You had all those sounds. So I thought to myself, I'm like, what if we just put this into an EV and somehow read the same engine dynamics and had it repeat under the same conditions, the same sounds? And so we were already most of the way down the road because we had all the recordings done and all the data mapped and everything.
Right.
So the key was, can we get into the CAN bus? And we used a Mustang Mach-E. Can we get into the CAN bus and pull all this data off the CAN bus that's going to give us all that information to be able to replay this? And we were able to do it. So I don't have anything to show yet. We're very, very close. By the end of the year, we'll have a bunch of stuff, not just for the Mach-E, but for the Lightning as well. We do have a prototype, a working prototype, and it's that visceral connection that's missing from an electric car. And there are some things about it that you can do that you can't do on an internal combustion car. Like, for instance, a mute button. You know, you can mute it. You can make it louder or quieter, or there's some other little personalization things that you can do, and you can save a preset. Since then we've recorded about a dozen other vehicles, you know, iconic motors with Borla exhaust on them. So we're building like a sound library, and the whole thing is operated by an app on your phone. So you can change. That's cool. You can change vehicles. You can add effects to it. You can download other vehicles. You can make it loud. You can change the volume inside the cabin or outside the cabin. You can shut it off altogether. But the key to it is that it's not a noisemaker. It's not a toy. it's we've had a bunch of sort of influential people sort of test this to make sure it is what we think it is, and every one of them has unequivocally told us that when they stop thinking about what it is and how weird it is that it's an EV, and you just get in that zone where you're driving, it's really helpful and it's really fun. So
you need to do a Top Fuel dragster sound too, just because. Just have it in there, That's what you need.
We can do all that stuff. I think eventually the next generation, probably not my generation, really, the next generation is going to get into all kinds of other sounds. We're working with synthesizer companies and guitar modeling companies to come up with new notes and tones to bring it to another level. But the idea is, let's have some fun here. I've talked to quite a few people that are, very much against internal combustion, and promoting electric cars. And I'm like, you guys got to open this up to car guys. Just because a car guy took your lunch in high school doesn't mean you have to hate us. Like, come on.
Yeah. You're right. You're right. And the thing is that I get it. You want to save the planet. I'm not disputing that. My whole thing is, let's build the infrastructure first, because I know all the cool stuff will come. All the stuff that you just talked about, it will come. But right now, you think about it. I have personally no reason to buy an EV car. One,
that's the key. So that's the key. I keep talking to these guys about it. I'm like, I'm like, and they're totally resigned to the fact and unapologetic about the fact that they have to force people to do this. Right. I'm like, that's wrong. That's wrong. Make it attractive. Make it fun. Make it practical. Don't just use legislation and all this other stuff to like browbeat everybody into doing it. You don't have to do that. You shouldn't have to do that.
You shouldn't have to do it. Hold on, John. But you know what I've said? I said this the other day. If they try to force us to get into it, I'm gonna learn how to make my own moonshine, and I'll just run all my damn cars and alcohol. Because I have no reason to buy an EV right now. I just don't, and you're not going to force me into
it. I'm sorry to go back to this, but back to that guy that lives in an apartment building in the Valley or Akron, Ohio, or whatever. Until they have a solution for that guy, gasoline is not going anywhere. Right. And this is where you get into that whole elitist conversation too. Yeah. It works for, a doctor who's got a garage and drives to the hospital. And at the hospital, he's got a parking spot with his name on it. And he wants everybody to see that he drives a Tesla, and he's got a supercharger there. Yeah. And he drives the same distance back and forth every day. And oh, by the way, he's also got an Escalade in his garage that he doesn't tell anybody about.
Yeah. Say what you're going to say, John. Ask your question. Come on.
My thing was, when David was talking, is if you're going to take a road trip with your family in an RV or go camping, and you're going to, do about 3,000 miles from one side of the country to the other, how the hell do you do that?
Yeah.
I mean, electric vehicle. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. At that time together, if I'm outside of Philly, how do you drive to Florida without needing to stop every 3 hours and park? You can't do it in any kind of efficiency.
When you started by talking about how they pull and how they launch and everything, that's a really interesting aspect to this, because you get a lot of sort of people who don't understand car guys that say, why do you have to modify it? Like, who cares? These things are fast, right? All you guys care about is fast and whatever. So that, that comes away in a couple things, which is, first of all, you're missing the whole sort of love affair that we have with motors and cars. And it's not just about going fast. It's about towing a boat and about other things, and even just rolling up to a restaurant on a Saturday night and stuff like that, But I'll get some guys at a friend of mine come over with a Tesla Plaid, and immediately he's like, and I drive a Durango Hellcat, so they couldn't be more different, really, if you think about it. So he's like, let's race, and in the back of my mind, I'm thinking I might be able to take him anyway, if I get off the line faster. But that thing's got 1,000 horsepower. So I'm like, fine. I'm like, you get to pick the dollar figure. You're the one telling me we're going to race. I get to pick the conditions of the race. So I'm like, we're in LA, and I'm like, I'll race you to San Francisco, and so I mean, and so, right. So you asked that question, right? LA to San Francisco, like that's a
Good
beautiful drive. Like car
Yeah.
guys
Yeah.
love that drive on the PCH
Yep.
and all that stuff. You can't do it in an electric car. You can't. New York to Boston, you know,
Yeah.
you can't make that drive.
No.
And why is it so offensive to say that? You say that to somebody and they're like, you know, the Tesla army comes after you. Like it's a legitimate question that they don't have an answer for.
Yeah. Yeah. They don't. They don't.
Yeah, the only way it's possible is to have a battery that you can remove like a pit stop and replace it fast enough that you're on your way again. But who knows if you're going to get the same quality of battery once you swap out. There's a lot of things there.
Aren't they like 500 pounds or 1,000 pounds or something?
Yeah, right now it's impossible.
Yeah,
I'm saying it's the chassis.
Floor fan.
Exactly. So it's
You know,
not
the thing
designed
that
to
bothers
do that.
me. The thing that bothers me is just the hyperbole. You know, that's the problem with it. Is like, because I'll talk to, you know, I have a friend who's heavily involved in this whole thing, and I'll say to him like, look, right now, what are they? 2% of all the cars, right? You get to 8%, 10%, 20%, whatever. Eventually, the air quality is going to get better, or you know, you're going to see some sort of measurable difference. And if not, then why are we doing this anyway? You know, and I'm like, you know, whatever your opinion is, the environment can handle one internal combustion car. Could probably can handle 100. Could probably handle 100,000. Like, where's the line? Like, what's the percentage you're looking for? And he said to me, I'm not going to stop until every single internal combustion engine is purged from this earth, or something like that. You know, it's those hyperboles. Like when the guy from GM gets up and says fully electric by 2035. You know, like why does it have to go there? You know, why can't it be like, yeah, there's a place for them. It makes sense. Like municipal vehicles, for instance. Like why isn't the government putting the onus on themselves? Why isn't every bus in every city electric already?
Yeah.
Why does the guy in Akron, Ohio have to charge at Target? Why can't you make all the buses electric?
Yeah,
you know?
if right now they were developing an electric airplane, okay, or a boat,
yeah, right,
okay,
yeah.
but nobody's going to jump in the water with a bunch of juice under their feet and go, "Good luck with that."
It's
not going to happen. You know what I mean? There's just some things that we're going to do without that do not fit, that would take longer than 20 years to make that change. It's not. It's crazy.
Well, you know, we already have.
Go ahead.
No, we have rolling blackouts out here already. We haven't had that part of the conversation yet about the power grid can't even handle it as it is. Disposing of the batteries is nasty. Mining all that lithium is nasty. And what did you see with Elon Musk, by the way? Something very interesting I saw with him, which was that he was a hero, right? Remember, he was like a hero. They had him on Saturday Night Live. He was saving the earth and everything, until he became the richest guy in the world.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You're right.
That changed everything, right? So what did we learn? They hate rich people more than they love the environment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's what I learned from all this, right? So what's going to happen? One of these companies is going to win the electric battle, or somebody's going to get rich off of this. And there's going to be it's going to be the same thing. And like kids that are born today are going to hate battery companies, or they're going to hate, you know, for ruining the environment the same way. It's not going to be any different. It's going to be the same thing. You know, they just hate these giant oil companies, and there's this real dislike for, you know, they bring in all these politics, like you guys are saying, and it's really not necessarily relevant in every case. But for me personally, I just want to have fun with cars. Like, can we just have fun with this, please? You know, why does it have to feel like a sacrifice to drive one of these cars?
Yeah.
Like, can we get to the point where it isn't? Like, why don't we work on that?
I forget who it was that we had on. It may have been Ralph from Chrysler. I don't remember. We were talking about some of this stuff. And one of the things that a friend of mine said to me a long time back was, why don't they put a filter on the front of the car that cleans more than it puts out? Some kind of catalytic converter type thing that goes in front of the radiator, so it's, you know, zero emissions, because you're cleaning up the guy in front of you.
Yeah.
And it would make more sense to implement something like that first, then do the infrastructure. But right now, the Chinese are making the parts for our power grid. Joe Biden's allowed that to happen. He just removed the tariffs on solar panels so that we can import more Chinese solar panels.
Yeah, and they're building electric cars. They want to sell us electric cars.
Yeah. Yeah. For 99 cents, I'm sure, you know. But the whole thing is pretty, it's pretty crazy. But I don't want to go way too long on one subject. I'm gonna switch gears totally here.
Switch gears.
David, I saw somewhere where you were in the music industry, music business before all that you're doing now. What the hell's that, and how do you make that connection? What's going on there? Was that your passion, and what was it?
Cars have always been a passion of mine. Music is also a passion of mine. I think cars and music have sort of crossed paths a lot in history, right? Guys like Eddie Van Halen and Jeff Beck, and Billy Gibbons, obviously, and then even car guys that like music too. It goes in that direction also. So both of those things have been my passions growing up. And you guys talked about football. I like football too, so that I'd make that third. But I had a talent for it growing up, and I had a particular talent for playing drums. And Borla Exhaust was started in Brooklyn, so I grew up in New York City, and I had access to a lot of good musicians, and had the opportunity to sort of play out in New York when I was young. And and I was just fortunate enough. My parents insisted that I finish college and all that, so I got a degree. And then after that, I just started humping around playing drums and worked my way up and met some other musicians and put a band together and got a record deal and wrote a song and performed a song that charted, and we went to number 20 in the country, and also co-wrote and performed the theme song to the movie Dude, Where's My Car? So if you want to,
that's pretty cool.
Check it out, which is kind of funny. So the whole intro to that movie is my song. Wow. So on the recording side, with the record thing, we sold about 50,000 records, which was really great for us, but not enough to make the record companies really interested in it. And so I was in a position where I was like, I could go play drums for somebody else, which was enticing, and I had a network that I could probably have worked an opportunity like that. But I also had a marketing degree, and my parents' business was doing really well. And so I sort of had this agreement with them that I would tour a little bit, and when I wasn't touring, I would work at the business. And I did that for a couple of years, did some pretty cool stuff touring with other bands. And then as I got older, I kind of realized that I wanted to do the Borla thing. I just, it didn't happen overnight. It was just day after day after day, I got more interested in it, and it became more exciting to me. And I think the more of an investment I made in it, and my parents were really cool about sort of giving me that opportunity. But the experience I had on the sound recording side and learning about sound in general actually became very helpful later on, because sound is sound. And a lot of the stuff that I learned, I was able to apply in exhaust technology. Like, for instance, I own a patent, or have a patent on a design for this technology based on organ pipes. So if you think about organ pipes, my father always told me that we tune our exhaust systems like an organ, with length and diameter of pipe, basically changing exhaust notes.
Makes
right.
sense.
And that's how a pipe organ works. When you're at a church, you see all those different sizes of pipes, right? The tone that's being generated is the same note. It's just going through all those different pipes, and that's how it changes. And so what I learned was that those lengths and diameters, as you might imagine, are not arbitrary. There are formulas and calculations there, and they go all the way back to Pythagoras, believe it or not. So because I just know enough about music to know how harmony works and how multiple notes are combined. And so we had played around a lot with asymmetrical exhaust designs, like when you have a dual exhaust, right? Typically, and this is what we usually do too, you sort of have the same muffler design on both sides, right? They're just sort of two identical banks moving down. And so what we realized, one of the things we realized as we were playing around, was that every once in a while we would do like an asymmetrical design. So we'd get one note from one side and one note from another. And if you kind of tuned it right, the two of them together would sound really cool. And so we evolved this idea, and we patented this concept, which we call polyphonics. And poly means many, phonics means sound. So it's more than one sound put together, and it's really based on power chords on a guitar, like perfect fifths. So if you're on an organ and you play a root note and you play a perfect fifth above it, wherever it is on the keyboard, the ratio between those two pipes are the same. So I found out that there's like this formula, and so I took standard sizes, and then I used the formula to get like the fifth above it. And sometimes we add a third note, and it gets into some music theory stuff, but it works, and we were able to demonstrate it, and we got full-on patents for it. And it's one of the reasons why our exhaust systems sound so different and so unique. You know, the aftermarket's not necessarily about being better than the next guy. I know there's a lot of that, and that's cool, you know, but some of it's about just having different flavors, right? All the different ways that you can modify a car, and different, you know, think about the Tri-5 Chevys, right? Like how many different spins have been put on those cars, or a 32 Ford, right? How many different visions people have had for those. So sound is the same, you know, a small block Chevy, you can make it sound a lot of different ways. And so this polyphonic technology allows us to do something unique that stands out and is different.
That's cool.
That is.
And then
cool.
on the electric car side, you know, I did some touring with some, I don't want to like name drop or whatever, with some bands that were pretty notable, and those bands now are not using amplifiers on stage anymore. It's over the last like year or two, the really big stadium bands don't use amplifiers for their guitars anymore. They plug their guitar into a computer, and the computer goes right into the PA, and it allows them to do a whole lot of different stuff. But it's the technology is called modeling, and so computer modeling. So it's the same thing we're doing as I explained on the electric cars earlier. It's modeling, right? You're recreating a sound. It's not the actual sound. It's a recreation of the sound. So, you know, through binary code, essentially. So I was able to kind of call my friends from my former life, and they were a really big help in modeling these sounds. And those two aspects of my life are sort of crossing over to a greater degree than ever with this electric car thing. So
that's crazy.
That's cool as shit. I wasn't expecting all that.
Neither was I. I was not thinking about that.
Yeah, that's pretty
so
deep.
Cool.
That's pretty deep.
Yeah,
that's good.
Damn, I mean, look, you know how guys like a paint guy, you know, the level that they think about paint and the way they look at paint. I was fortunate enough to have Dave Kindig one time show me kind of, you know, his what he looks for in paint, and how he looks at the way a car is painted and stuff. And people devote their lives to that. You know, a guy who builds engines, you know, gets into it. No matter what kind of car guy you are, if you haven't lived your life like that, you know, he's going to go deeper into it. And, you know, I am the luckiest guy I know. I've been playing around with car sounds since I'm 4 years old. I mean, and when I was a kid, I was just running around having fun with it. And, you know, I've seen all these people come through our facility, and all the car enthusiasts we've worked with, and race car drivers. And I love it. And it's a part of me, you know, in a way that is hard for me to articulate. It's it's in my heart and soul. And you know, since I'm a kid, I really truly love it. And I love not just making things sound how I want, but I love being able to give different people different flavors that they want. Right.
Right.
You know?
Right.
If we just built what I like, we probably wouldn't sell very much. You know, it's fun to build all different kinds of stuff for all different kinds of people. You know, and that's back to this sort of like thing about, you know, hatred of V8s and electric cars and all this other stuff. Like, that's got to go. It's got to go.
Yeah, it's got to be more open-minded.
Yeah.
I'm gonna switch gears again because the last switching his gears worked out well. You said you were you grew up in New York, from New York. At what age did you move to California?
So it's a little bit complicated. My dad moved out when I was 8. He left New York when I was 8, and I stayed in New York all the way through college. And then because I was going to go work for him right after college, but the music thing took off. So he was really cool about letting me do that, and I did that for a while and wound up being really, really beneficial for me. But even when he moved to California when I was 8, I still was out there all the time. So
yeah,
but I officially moved to California when I was in my 20s.
What I'm getting at is the story I heard about moving from California and moving a portion of the business to Tennessee.
Yeah.
And there was the story about the truck drivers, gasoline. It's almost like it echoes today. Gasoline jumps up in the middle or right after you negotiate the move with the truck drivers. You know where I'm going with this. Explain what the hell happened, because I'm thinking that's a headache on top of a headache because you're already worried as it is. Explain what happened there.
So you're absolutely right. This is a great time to tell the story because we were going through something very similar with the gas prices and the way gas prices were rising and the overall recession. We felt like that was the right time for us to move. California is a tough place to manufacture. It's just really expensive to manufacture here, and you're all the way on the other side of the country. The majority of the population's on the other side of the Mississippi, so you're constantly paying for shipping the other way. And it just, became unfavorable. And really right around the same time, Toyota and Nissan and Volkswagen, they all moved to Tennessee from California, and they left their design kind of house there. So we did the same thing. We left sales and marketing and research and development. And, our longtime fabricator stayed in California, but we needed to manufacture somewhere else. And Tennessee was so great with us and giving us incentives to come there. And we found a place that has a real history of manufacturing and just great people down there, hardworking people. They were happy to have us. California didn't care. We left, we wound up in a world-class facility, 350,000 square feet. And so it was a really good decision, but getting there was rough, and making that change was rough. We were not really in a position where we could have 2 facilities running at the same time. We couldn't afford to do that. We didn't have the resources to do that. So we had to try to do it like a light switch, and we couldn't go very long without shipping parts either. So imagine these, giant benders that are, tons, they weigh tons, and they're worth, hundreds of thousands of dollars or $1 million even. And so getting all this machinery over to Tennessee and getting it up and running there was a big liability there. And if we bled for too long, we might not have made it, so we were very nervous. And so we did our homework, and we did all the math, and we negotiated rates with these truckers to have these important machines go across the country to Tennessee, and time was ticking. And well, in between the time that we negotiated these deals and it was time to actually do it, gas prices went up dramatically, but we had signed contracts. And so these guys came and they picked up the machines and they started driving to Tennessee. And somewhere along the way, more than one of them did the math or realized that they weren't going to make any money, or they weren't going to make enough money. And they literally just unhooked the trailer and left it at a truck stop and called us and said, your benders at this truck stop in Kansas, sorry. And we had to figure out how to do it. We had to figure out what to do about it. We had to get somebody else out there to yank these things and get them to Tennessee. And one of them fell over, was on its side when it showed up. And so that was a really difficult time for us. And but we survived, we made it. And took a little while to get on our feet after we made that move. But now being in that facility and being in that part of the world is just a gigantic advantage for us. And we're really, really happy that we were there. And I don't think we would have survived in California. I don't think we would have been able to continue making parts in California. It's just gotten worse and worse.
There's a lot of hot rod shops that are either thinking about it or have moved.
Yeah,
you know,
out
of California.
Yep.
There's a lot of. I mean,
Yep.
you know, Hotchkiss moved to Mooresville. They're
Yep.
a half hour
Yeah.
from me.
Mm-hmm.
Scott's Hot Rods moved to Knoxville. You know, and there's a few that have moved to Texas. I mean, there's a mass exodus in California, and to me it seems like they don't care. They don't care because you have something to do with cars, and they don't want you in there. But they're losing revenue. You know?
You wonder where it's going. I mean, I can't see their books, so I have no idea. But
right.
What's weird about it, though, is that, you know, housing prices keep going up out here, and it keeps getting more expensive to live. And there's still people here. I don't know where they're coming from, and how everybody survives. I don't know. Like, I drive around, and I'm like, there are just thousands and thousands of these homes, and they're so expensive. Like, where, you know, and with all these companies moving, like, where's all the money coming from? Like, how are these people making it? You know, and you keep thinking at some point, you know, but I think they do have negative migration in California, even though the population increases, which is a weird sort of data thing. And the reason for that is there are more people leaving California than there are coming to California. But with new births, it's the new births that are keeping the population up here. But actually, as far as migration is concerned, more people are leaving than are coming.
Got you.
How many people are working in the Tennessee plant? How many total in that area?
Over 300 in our facility. Just our over 300 in our facility.
That's a lot of people to see roll out. You think they'd be?
California lost 300 jobs.
Yeah.
But what they do is they put an article out. They did. You can find it on the internet, saying that Borla was downsizing, and just told everybody here that we were just struggling and our business was no good and we were downsizing, and we left. The reality of it is we moved into a much bigger facility and we've done nothing but grow ever since.
Yeah.
You know, quite a few of the people that worked for us back then are still having a hard time replacing that employment opportunity. You know, but the government has them convinced to vote for them, or I don't know.
Keep it going. Yeah, it's sort of weird. It is really weird. Now, I heard a story, and I don't know if I have it right. The 350Z. That was a turning point. It sounded like the way I heard it for you, being involved in the 350Z with early 2000s.
Yeah,
working with Nissan. Tell us about that.
So I had been brought out. You know, I told you I sort of came out here and started working, and I was kind of had one foot in the music business and one foot in this, and where really my parents started to feel like they really needed me was with this sport compact thing. And I was originally brought in as a youth marketing guy. You know, it's the first time my dad kind of felt like he wasn't really in touch with that generation.
Yeah.
So the 350Z, it's funny now because of all the high horsepower stuff that's come out since, it's sort of forgotten about. But at the time, bang for your buck, it was the best car out there, actually. And it was rear wheel drive, and it was a lot of fun, and it was accessible for younger people. So that was an important car. And we were primarily doing OE work at the time, which really is not technically OE work because the stuff that we do for the OEs is still aftermarket. The OEs have their own aftermarket programs, but we call it OE because we're working with OEs, you know. So in this case, we worked with Nissan, and Nissan had their own requirements for what they wanted in an exhaust, and they insisted on having a single exhaust, you know, running down the middle of the car. We developed something for them, and ultimately we didn't get it. We didn't get the program. Somebody else got it, and that's fine. But so since we had put all this R&D into this thing, we just, and I wasn't a big part of this decision, but we just released it anyway to the aftermarket as a single system. And we got our butts kicked. This was back in the day when magazines had the cojones to do like exhaust shootouts, you know, and they would dyno everything and show you the real results. And then they realized that the people who lost wouldn't advertise with them, so they stopped doing it. But this was when they were still doing it, and we got beat. And you know, like we didn't make as much power as others, and the sound wasn't good and whatever. So I sort of asserted myself, and I was like, let's make a real dual system, and we got heavily involved in it. And really, I think my thing was, and where I changed things, I think a little bit for Borla, was that I was really heavily about going out and talking to end users, people that own the vehicle, and like what they were looking for.
Yeah, that's huge.
So I got together with a bunch of 350Z guys and talked, you know, which also gave me access to some cars because they were willing to give us their cars. You know, we came out with something that was a lot more complicated and frankly more expensive, but it made a lot more power and it sounded better. And then we got rid of the other system. We released this new one, and we're able to secure another exhaust shootout for, I think it was a magazine that was exclusively for 350Z. And then we cleaned up. We won all 3 categories, which was best performing, best sounding, and best overall. So we won all 3 categories, and then that went on to be our best selling exhaust system for the next 2 years. And it really sort of helped me establish myself. So, you know, of course, when I first got involved, I mean, I was my parents' son. It was David Borla. Like, I was sort of gifted this opportunity. So that was the first time I really kind of was able to show my colleagues that I had some value and that there was a future, you know, with my generation and with what we wanted to do. So that's what happened with the 350.
You went from being the boss's son that's just in the way to a legitimate person in the company. That's what, yeah. That's what it is. Yeah. And dude, that's awesome. That's awesome. That you can't.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and it's just it's a real honor to be able to represent this company and to do this stuff. You know, and we have this car community, you know, across the world. This car customization, this car guy thing. I mean, you know, I've also been fortunate enough to do some international traveling and to meet car guys from all over the world, and it's just this common bond that we all have doing this. And it's just I've been blessed to be able to do it, and I'm so thankful for it.
That's cool. That's way cool.
Couple things. Go ahead,
John. You know, I need to go out to Johnson City and check that place out.
Please do. Yes.
You know?
Yeah. You know what? Yeah. You would like it, but they would be honored to have you there too. You know, they're such good people, and we wouldn't be able to do this without them. I mean, the patents are cool, and developing exhaust systems and getting to drive all these fun cars and be on a show with you guys and all this stuff is great. But without a factory full of hardworking people, you know, sweating every single day early, you know, making these parts over and over and over again, you know, they're incredible people. They really are. And it goes unnoticed and extends beyond them, you know, American manufacturing in general, hardworking people. That they're the ones that make the world go round.
Yeah. So John, say what we got to say.
There's a couple things. We got a couple cool questions that came in. One is the RPM Act, EPA, by Kevin. He wants to know what your thoughts on the RPM Act and the EPA. I wanted to know about SEMA, because we're coming down to the wire here. Your thoughts on 22 on SEMA. And beforehand, real quick, we talked about the three of us were talking about cars, what you drove, what you got, and that. And I think that people need to see the 2 GTs that you were talking about, that you were test driving and running around. So, Brad, put up the white 06 and talk about this car for a second. I know we got a lot to cover here in a short period, but that's badass, man. I always wanted one of those. Man. I always wanted one. I was looking at them when they were like a year old, and they were hot.
Yeah, we have one just like that, same exact color, and it's my favorite car. I mean, and I'm not saying that lightly. Like, you know, I've driven a lot of cars, and we even have, as you also mentioned, we have a 2019 also, and I just love this car. You know, the white one, the V8. You know, it's just the fact that it's a V8. I'm a sound guy. We have our exhaust on it, you know, and it's a manual. So the V8 manual thing, it just beats the V6 turbo a paddle shift. You know, it just does. Like, of course, like, you know, if I was in a road race and had to win, I'd probably take the 2019 because it's easier to drive, frankly, and all that stuff. But the 06 is just so fun. It's just really so fun.
Yeah, that's cool.
So I see more questions about the RPM Act.
Yeah.
It's first of all, we could probably dedicate an entire show to this, so I don't know how deep to get into it.
Yeah.
So I think you have a big problem right now, which is that even if it somehow were to make it through legislation, Biden would just strike it down anyway. So I don't know what we're talking about until Biden's out of office. I see no way that he would ever let it happen. But I'm not a politics guy. There are people watching this that know way more about politics than I do. But there is a line, like a Vegas line kind of thing, on the possibility of acts and bills and stuff being enacted.
Right.
And I can tell you that what they're saying now is that the RPM Act has less than like a 5% chance of being enacted. So, you know, I'm not particularly optimistic about it. I think what EPA is doing is reprehensible. I think it's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting what they're doing. They're dirty cops. They're dirty cops.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, imagine if the guy, you know, okay, it's one thing to have police, right, who you know, think you may or may not have committed a crime or whatever, right? But then that police hands you over to the legal system and you get a trial, right? And it's separate from the cops. It's the foundation of this country.
Right.
Is like due process and a jury trial. Right.
Yeah.
But what people don't understand is that the EPA has its own legal system. There's something called an administrative law judge, right, which is equivalent to getting a cop writes you up for a speeding ticket, right? And he says to you, why don't you come down to the station and talk? Right? You go down to the station and they take you in a back room and there's some guy there that says, look, give us some money and we'll make this go away.
Yeah.
That's what it is. That's what it is. That's all it is.
Keep it
right?
fair.
Okay,
Keep it fair.
Okay, right. So the EPA is out there defending the environment. Look, I want to breathe too. We all breathe. This notion that like we don't want to breathe is ridiculous, right? I have kids. The environment matters to me. I love the environment. Like, you know, we all want to go out there and enjoy all this stuff. So that's not the case, you know. Yeah. If they think somebody's doing something against the environment, they should go blow the whistle. Right. But this administrative law judge thing, and mark my words, it's going to go away because it's unconstitutional. As soon as somebody fights it, it's going to go away. But the problem with the EPA is the administrative law judges and that whole process. I don't have any problem with them going out and making sure that people aren't, you know, poisoning the air or the water or all that other stuff. Somebody needs to check up on all that, you know, but they can't have their own legal system. No. Like the administrative law judge is on the payroll with the EPA. Who do you think they're going to rule for?
Yeah.
I mean, and every time they do, you know, so that's the problem with this whole thing. And then the problem with the RPM Act is it just opened the door to them being able to do it. As wrong as it is, you know, by you know, they're just going in and killing people in the industry. They're just crushing the industry. You know, so the RPM Act, as much as I believe it and I believe in it and I support it, when I look at what's happened and sort of the ethics of EPA and how RPM Act has opened the door for them to be so nefarious. I mean, they're nasty. They don't care about the environment. They're measured on fines. That's their measurement.
Oh, I didn't know.
Right.
That.
So you go to their LinkedIn profiles and the first thing they're going to talk about is how many fines they gathered. They have no responsibility. I thought EPA was all about helping businesses like understand and clean up and giving them a chance. And there is none of that. Like they want to go in there and fine you for as much as they possibly can. And that's it.
Strong. Yeah. And you can't beat it. So
I got an EPA
like
story.
The IRS.
I got an EPA story. You're going to love this because it goes right to what you were saying. So when I was in the Navy, I was at Spec War Group staff, and one of my responsibilities was to go up to a demo range 2.5 hours away and fix equipment up there, and they, get stuff ready to be blown up, stuff like that. My job was to drain all the fluids out so that it wouldn't make a mess, So I did a bunch. For whatever reason, the guys grabbed a vehicle that I hadn't gotten to yet, and they blew it up, and it was an EPA rep there. So there's oil all over the damn range. The EPA fined everybody at the demo range $1 million. I got fined $1 million. The CO, the ops officer, everybody in the command who was tied to that spot that they knew about what we were doing got fined $1 million. And that was when I was in the Navy. I mean, the command took care of it all, but they basically just moved money from one pot to another. And it was all, and it was a legitimate mistake. I understand that. And we got it cleaned up. But it was that simple. It was just that crazy. Because I didn't even know about it. Because I was in the shop 2 hours away, at the command, and this guy in a suit comes in looking for me, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm from the EPA, and you've been fined." I'm like, "Huh? What?" I wasn't even there. Yeah,
and there could be a shop across the street doing the same thing, and they have no responsibility to go after them. You know what I'm saying?
So
like,
crazy.
and this goes back to kind of what you guys were saying earlier about the whole gun situation, and I don't want to get too deep into that either. But like, it's really all of this stuff that we're talking about, people leave out the enforcement side of it.
Yeah.
Right. Everybody wants to talk about laws and putting laws in place and all this other stuff. The same guys that are talking about more laws are also talking about defunding the police.
Yeah.
Who the hell is going to enforce the laws that you want to put in place?
Turn yourself
how do you do both? How do you do both of those things? And the reason for it is they don't care about any of that. And this is the thing with the EPA too, right? They want to be able to enforce against who they want to enforce against. Right? So they'll put the law in place, and then it's up to them. It's up to them if they want to go after somebody or not.
Whether you're in or not.
Yeah, that's the big problem, right? EPA is just sort of cherry picking here and there, especially companies that they think they can get money out of, right?
Yeah.
But if you're some guy that they don't think they can get money out of, no matter how much you're hurting the environment, they're just not going to waste their time on you.
Yeah.
Real quick, David, let's talk SEMA. Well, I'm guessing you guys got a booth there every year. You're going to be there this year.
The last 3 years, this year and the last 2 years have been a judgment call, sort of all the way up to the show. We as of right now, we have our booth. Look, I love SEMA. I love the people that work for SEMA. I have a lot of friends there, so I'm very biased in the conversation. I'm rooting for them. We really want to see SEMA do well, but I think there's a problem with events in general and trade shows in general that extends way beyond SEMA, which is that, the cost of getting to the show, the cost of shipping stuff to the show is all gotten so expensive. There's no way to do it for any reasonable cost, and it's always been hard to measure the results. So as you get to a certain point, and then you start looking at other opportunities, other ways to promote, other things you could do with the money, machines,
like
other
podcasts,
things that you can do.
Podcasts,
podcasts.
Like that, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's just getting harder and harder to justify paying Southwest and Avis and Hilton hotels. Like, that doesn't do anything, it doesn't really do anything. And then shipping product to get it in there is crazy. So I think everybody's facing the same problem, which is like, how do you get there for less money without looking like, Sanford and Son, so that's the problem.
I got to tell you, I appreciate the candid conversation. This was a pretty good podcast.
Right on.
And I'll tell
we
you
already
what,
had one ask, when are we going to have him back? Because it was so good.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Across the screen, yeah.
If we're going to take the 2 months off, July and August. We're coming back in September. If you decide to go to SEMA, pop in. What we talked about last year is having a SEMA show, meaning a couple weeks before SEMA, if you're going, you tell us where you're going, where your booth is, what's going to be. Come see me, that type of thing, and promote your area, because there are guys that actually tie in and show up, not just from afar. But I'll tell you, I think people, just like we were talking before the show, I think people now feel they got a friend over at Borla they can call. And
right
go,
on.
hey, I got a 350Z. What are we doing here? But yeah, I hope you guys see that. David's a cool dude. I'm actually a little surprised.
Yeah, reach out to me. Unfortunately, I can't just talk to everybody about everything. But if you want to ask me something specific about the company or whatever, my email address is davidb@borla.com. Lots of car guys email me, or you can find me on Facebook or whatever. Yeah. I'm pretty accessible. I can't promise I'm going to reply to everybody, but I try. So
that's pretty cool.
Don't hesitate to reach out to me. Only problem is I'm just going to wind up in the EPA jail after everything I said on this show. So
we're going to do the shakedown.
I don't know if I can broadcast from prison, but other than that, I think
when you come back, we'll have you sitting in the dark. We'll disguise your voice.
We'll put you in a 3 less protection program.
Excellent. Thank you.
I
knew I could count on you guys.
we know
we got a guy. We got a guy.
Right on.
Thanks,
all right, so David, here's the deal. This is when Brad makes a screen like this. This means he's telling us to get done. So tell everybody all your social media handles, all that stuff, and how that so they can reach out to you if they want to see what you're up to.
The company is Borla Exhaust, or at Borla Exhaust, and then I'm at David Borla, both on Instagram and Facebook. You can find us there, or call me or email me, and if you see me, pull me aside. And love talking to car guys, and thank you for this opportunity, and love to come back on whenever you'd like to have me.
Appreciate it, David.
I don't have your number anymore. My phone dumped it. I don't know why. I can't find it.
I have your. I'll text you. I still have your number.
Right, I got to get my thumb in right there. It is.
There you go.
All right, David. Thanks for coming on. And
Thank you, guys.
All right.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you,
John. What do you got? Say something useful.
Money's on the dresser, Lou.
There you go. There you go. There you go. That's Mr. Hudson's 67 International pickup truck. That's my little tribute to Mr. Hudson. He's gone now. Yep.
Okay.
So, all right, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the show. Next week, I gotta get a hold of Dan Short and see if he wants to come on. I asked him and I haven't heard from him yet. And tomorrow will be a week, so I'll call him and I'll know more. If not, we'll figure something out. We ain't worried about it, and then we'll go from there. So hope you guys had a great time watching the show. Remember, 3leftsdon't@gmail.com. You can check us out on YouTube, Spotify, Google, and Roku, right? Or is it Apple TV?
No, it's not Roku or Apple TV. We're Apple Podcasts. It's not Apple TV. It's just Apple.
Apple. On Apple. I knew it was something like that, but I couldn't remember the last one.
Yeah, we're all over the place. We got to get Brad to explain it. Brad, come on. And tell Brad who you have as a guest next week when we nail it down. I reached out to a few people. I didn't hear back either. I think most people
I'll know tomorrow.
Yeah, they're talking vacation already.
Yeah, I'll know tomorrow, so I'll find out. All right? All right. Till next week. Keep it between the lanes. Later.
See ya.